I saw my sister's face first, glowing with triumph. Then his face, my ex, standing right beside her at my own birthday party. Their joined hands rested deliberately on her stomach as she made the announcement that silenced the room. I didn't move from my spot behind my half-eaten cake. The candles were still smoking when my sister's voice cut through the air. "We're pregnant, 8 weeks along. We wanted to share our joy with everyone who matters most." Her eyes locked with mine as she emphasized the word everyone. I watched my mother burst into tears of happiness while my father clapped my ex on the back. No one looked at me. No one except my sister, who never broke her gaze, lips curved in what only I recognized as victory. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Emma Reyes. I'm 32, successful at my marketing job, and until that moment, I thought I had finally put together the pieces of a life that felt like mine. But in those few seconds, I saw everything shift: my family, my history, and my place in all of it. Because this wasn't just about a pregnancy announcement. It was about taking something that once belonged to me and turning it into a weapon. I met Jordan 5 years ago at a work conference. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to understand my drive. We dated for 3 years, and for 2 of them, I thought he might be the one. We talked about marriage, about kids, about building something lasting. Then things changed. Looking back, I can see the signs, the canceled dinners, the missed calls, the sudden distance. When he finally ended it, he said we'd grown apart. That sometimes people just don't fit. I believed him because it was easier than digging for a truth I wasn't ready to face. The breakup hit me hard. I lost weight, struggled to sleep, threw myself into work. Through all of it, my younger sister Olivia was there. She brought me soup, crashed on my couch for movie nights, listened to my heartbreak on repeat. "You deserve better," she'd say. He never appreciated what he had. She helped me donate his leftover clothes and delete our photos. She became the keeper of my healing. Or so I thought. I come from a family where love has always been a competition. My sister Olivia, 2 years younger, golden-haired and effortlessly beautiful, has always been the sun our family orbits around. Everything came easily to her: friends, attention, forgiveness. She dropped out of college twice because, quote, the structure felt too confining. She cycled through jobs like seasonal wardrobes. She lived in our parents' basement until she was 28 because she was finding herself. And through it all, my parents cupped her like something precious. I was different. Serious, responsible, determined. I put myself through college, built a career in digital marketing, saved aggressively. When I bought my condo last year, a 2-bedroom with hardwood floors and a small balcony overlooking the park, my parents said I was lucky to have such a good job. Luck had nothing to do with it. I worked 60-hour weeks for years. I skipped vacations. I chose stability over spontaneity every time. But in my family, achievement without drama isn't quite as interesting. We grew up in a modest 3-bedroom house in Cherry Creek. My father, Thomas, worked as an engineer. My mother, Diana, taught elementary school. On paper, we were the perfect family. Church on Sundays, family dinners, matching Christmas sweaters. But beneath the surface ran an undercurrent of imbalance. When Olivia failed math in 8th grade, my parents hired a tutor and blamed the teacher. When I won the state writing competition, they forgot to attend the ceremony. When Olivia crashed our father's car at 16, they replaced it within a week. When I asked for help with college applications, my mother said, "You're so organized, Emma. You don't need our help like your sister does." It wasn't that they didn't love me. It's that they never saw me as fragile enough to need protection. I became defined by my competence, while Olivia was defined by her needs. It created a pattern that followed us into adulthood. I gave, she took, and everyone pretended it was fair. After my breakup with Jordan, I spent a year rebuilding. I redecorated my condo, earned a promotion, started training for a half marathon. I dated casually but kept my distance emotionally. By the time my 32nd birthday arrived, I felt steady again. Strong. I even invited Jordan's cousin Marcus to my party since we'd remain friends. I thought it showed maturity that I'd moved past the hurt. The party was at my condo. Nothing extravagant. Just drinks, music, good food. I'd hired a caterer for the first time ever, splurging a little because it felt symbolic somehow. My best friend Zoe helped hang string lights across the balcony. My coworker Derek brought his famous signature cocktails. Around 30 people filled my space with laughter and conversation. Even my parents seemed genuinely happy to be there. Olivia arrived late, as usual. She wore a tight red dress that highlighted her slim figure. No visible baby bump yet, though now I understand why. She hugged me briefly, handed me a small gift bag without meeting my eyes. Happy birthday, sis. This year is going to be unforgettable. I thanked her, noticing she seemed nervous, checking her phone repeatedly. An hour later, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone else, but parties always have stragglers. I opened the door, and there was Jordan. My Jordan. Except he wasn't mine anymore, and he wasn't alone. Sorry we're late, he said casually, as if he'd been invited. Traffic was terrible. He stepped inside before I could respond, heading straight toward Olivia, who was now standing in the center of the room, one hand resting lightly on her stomach. Everything blurred after that. The way they stood together, the rehearsed announcement, the gasps of surprise that turned to awkward congratulations. My mother rushing forward to embrace them both. My father shaking Jordan's hand with a proud smile. My friends glancing at me with horror and pity. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I stood frozen, the birthday girl turned spectator at her own party. Someone whispered, "Did you know?" I shook my head. Someone else touched my arm. "Are you okay?" I nodded automatically. The room felt too hot, too crowded, too much. Then Olivia approached, Jordan trailing behind her. "Aren't you going to congratulate us?" she asked, her voice sweet, but her eyes challenging. "We wanted to tell you first, but then we thought, what better time than when everyone we love is together?" I looked at Jordan, searching his face for any sign of remorse or discomfort. There was none. He looked proud, his hand possessively on my sister's lower back. "How long?" I asked quietly. "Does it matter?" Olivia replied. "It does to me." Jordan cleared his throat. "We reconnected about 6 months ago. It just happened, Emma. We didn't plan this. 6 months ago, when I was still occasionally crying myself to sleep. When Olivia was still bringing me comfort food and trash-talking him. When she still had a key to my condo because I trusted her completely. I felt something crack inside me. Not my heart, that had already been broken and inexpertly repaired. This was different. This was the breaking of an illusion I'd carried my entire life. That despite everything, my sister loved me. That family meant safety. "Emma," my mother called from across the room, "come take a picture with your sister. This is such a special moment for our family." A special moment. My birthday party hijacked to celebrate my sister's pregnancy with my ex-boyfriend. And they expected me to smile for a photo. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I simply said, no. Then I walked to my bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands folded in my lap, and breathed. In, out. In, out. I could hear murmuring outside, the awkward shuffle of a party suddenly without its host. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw things, to demand they all leave. Another part wanted to emerge with perfect composure, to show them they couldn't break me. A soft knock came at the door. It was Zoe, my oldest friend. She slipped inside and sat beside me, saying nothing at first, just linking her arm through mine. "What do you need?" she finally asked. "I need them gone," I whispered. "All of them." Zoe nodded, squeezed my arm and left. I heard her clear voice addressing the guests, making some excuse about me feeling unwell, suggesting the party wrap up. There were confused murmurs, the sound of gathering belongings, shuffling feet. Through my bedroom window, I watched people trickle out to their cars. My parents lingered on the sidewalk with Olivia and Jordan, heads bent in conversation, occasionally glancing up at my window. When the condo was finally empty, Zoe returned. "They're gone. Your mom tried to stay, but I told her you needed rest. She said to call her tomorrow." "Thank you. Do you want me to stay?" I shook my head. "I need to be alone." After Zoe left, I walked through my condo, straightening chairs, collecting half-empty glasses, turning off the music that still played in the background. The cake sat on the kitchen counter, barely eaten, my name written in blue frosting now smeared from cut slices. 32 candles, only half of which I'd managed to blow out before the announcement. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Call us when you're feeling better. We need to talk about your reaction tonight. Olivia is very upset." Olivia was upset. Of course. I turned off my phone and ran a bath. As I soaked in the hot water, I thought about patterns. How they form, how they perpetuate, how they sometimes need to be violently broken. I thought about my sister, who had spent her life taking what was mine, attention, forgiveness, chances, and how I had always stepped aside to make room. I thought about my parents, who had trained me to believe that my strength was a reason to expect less support, less protection, less consideration. And I thought about Jordan, who had once held my heart, then broken it, then picked up the pieces and handed them to my sister like they were his to give away. Something changed in me that night, something fundamental and irreversible. I decided I was done making room, done accepting less, done pretending that love should hurt this much. The next morning, my phone had 17 missed calls, 5 from my mother, 4 from my father, 8 from Olivia. I deleted them all without listening to the voicemails. Instead, I called my hairstylist and booked an emergency appointment. By noon, my long brown hair was gone, replaced by a sharp platinum bob that made my cheekbones look sculpted and my eyes more intense. It was a small thing, but it felt significant. A visible marker of change. I spent the rest of the day cleaning my condo, erasing every trace of the party. I threw away the remaining cake, took down the decorations, rearranged the furniture. I found a small wrapped box on the coffee table. Jordan's cousin Marcus had left his gift behind. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal with a note. "For new beginnings. Call me if you need anything." My doorbell rang at 7 that evening. I knew who it would be before I checked the peephole. My parents stood side by side, my mother clutching her purse with both hands, my father looking uncomfortable in the formal shirt he wore to difficult conversations. I considered not answering, but that would only delay the inevitable. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "Emma," my mother started, her voice gentle like I was a wounded animal. "We need to talk about last night." "There's nothing to discuss." "Honey, we understand you were surprised, but your reaction was very hurtful to your sister. She's pregnant, Emma. This should be a happy time for our family." My father nodded. "Jordan seems committed. He's talking about buying a house, setting up a college fund already. That's the kind of stability Olivia needs." I looked at them both. These people who raised me, who loved me in their limited way, who had never once in my life put my feelings first. Did either of you stop to think how this might affect me? That they announced this at my birthday party? That they've been together behind my back for months? "Sometimes love is complicated," my mother said. "You're strong, Emma. You've always been the practical one. Olivia and the baby need our support now." "And I don't?" My father sighed. "That's not what we're saying. But you have to admit, you've always landed on your feet. You have your career, this beautiful home. Olivia has struggled more. Because you've allowed her to. Because you've expected nothing from her and everything from me." "That's not fair," my mother said, her voice hardening. "We've always been there for both of you." I laughed, a short, bitter sound that surprised even me. "No, you haven't. But that's okay. I don't need you to be there for me anymore. I've been taking care of myself for a long time." "Emma, please. Olivia wants to make things right. She's your sister. Tell Olivia that sharing blood doesn't give her the right to take whatever she wants from me. Tell her that being pregnant doesn't excuse betrayal. And tell her that this time, I won't forgive and forget just to keep the peace. My mother's eyes filled with tears. You don't mean that. Family is everything. Family should be everything, I corrected. But our family has never been what it should be. I stepped back, one hand on the door. I need some space. Please respect that. For how long? My father asked, looking genuinely confused. I don't know. But I'll contact you when I'm ready. I closed the door gently but firmly, then leaned against it, listening to their muffled conversation, their retreating footsteps. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. We love you. Please don't shut us out. I didn't reply. The next day at work, I requested a meeting with my boss. I'd been offered a position at our company's Seattle office 6 months earlier, but had declined, not wanting to leave my family and friends. Now I asked if the opportunity was still available. It was. I accepted on the spot, agreeing to relocate within 30 days. When I told Zoe about my decision over coffee that weekend, she wasn't surprised. I've been waiting for you to make a big move for years, she said. Though I hoped it wouldn't take something like this to push you. Is it running away if you're running towards something better? I asked. Zoe smiled. No, that's just called growth. I spent the next 3 weeks packing, organizing, preparing. I hired a property management company to handle renting out my condo. I sold furniture I didn't want to take with me, donated clothes I no longer wore. I met with friends for farewell dinners but avoided family gatherings. My parents called daily at first, then every few days, their messages growing increasingly concerned, then frustrated, then resigned. Olivia texted once, "You're being childish. Jordan and I are building a family. You need to accept that and move on." I blocked her number without responding. Jordan never reached out at all. 3 days before my move, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Jordan's cousin Marcus standing there, holding a paper bag from my favorite bakery. "Peace offering," he said, holding up the bag. "I heard you're leaving town." I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. My condo was mostly empty now, just the essentials remaining. Boxes lined the walls, labeled with their new destinations. "Seattle, huh?" Marcus said, looking around. "Big change." "Needed one." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Marcus had always been different from Jordan, quieter, more thoughtful. We'd bonded over books and obscure films while Jordan and I were dating, maintaining a casual friendship after the breakup. "I brought croissants," he said, placing the bag on my kitchen counter. "And information, if you want it." I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of information?" "About Jordan and Olivia." He leaned against the counter, hands in his pockets. "I thought you should know the whole story before you leave." Part of me wanted to say I didn't care, that I was moving on. But a larger part needed closure, needed to understand how something this hurtful had happened. "Tell me," I said. Marcus took a deep breath. They didn't just reconnect 6 months ago. They've been seeing each other on and off for almost 2 years. Since before you and Jordan broke up. The words hit me like a physical blow. "He was cheating on me? With my sister?" Marcus nodded grimly. "I found out about a year ago. Saw them together at a restaurant when Jordan was supposed to be out of town. I confronted him, and he swore it was over, that it had been a mistake. I believed him, or wanted to. But then, after you two broke up, it started again." "And you didn't tell me?" My voice rose despite my effort to stay calm. "I should have. I'm sorry, Emma. By the time I realized it wasn't just a fling, you were already hurt from the breakup. I thought telling you would only cause more pain." I walked to the window, looking out at the street below, processing this new information. All those nights Olivia had comforted me after the breakup, all those times she'd listened to my pain. She had been sleeping with him, maybe laughing about me behind my back. "There's more," Marcus said quietly. "The pregnancy. It's not recent. She's 5 months along, not 8 weeks. I turned to face him. "What?" "They've been hiding it. I think they were planning to pass it off as happening after they officially got together. But Jordan let it slip last week when he was drunk. 5 months, Emma. 5 months. When I was hosting Easter dinner for the family, when Olivia wore that loose-fitting dress and declined wine, claiming she was on antibiotics. When she hugged me goodbye and said she was so glad we were close again after my rough patch with Jordan. Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. Marcus met my gaze steadily. "Because you deserve the truth, and because I've watched you blame yourself for that relationship failing when it wasn't your fault. Jordan isn't who you thought he was. Neither is Olivia." I nodded slowly, a strange calm settling over me. "Thank you for telling me." After Marcus left, I sat alone in my half-empty condo, letting the full weight of the revelation sink in. The betrayal was deeper, longer, more calculated than I'd imagined. It should have devastated me all over again. Instead, it crystallized something I'd been feeling since the birthday party. I needed to break the pattern once and for all. That night, I created a private social media account under a pseudonym. I uploaded screenshots of text conversations with my sister from after my breakup, where she sympathized and called Jordan names while apparently sleeping with him. I added photos of us at family events where she now admitted she had been secretly pregnant. I wrote a detailed timeline of the deception based on what Marcus had told me. I didn't publish it. Not yet. But I saved it, a digital insurance policy against further lies. The day before my move, my parents showed up unannounced again. This time, Olivia was with them, her pregnancy now visible in a deliberately tight top. They looked shocked at the emptiness of my condo, as if they hadn't believed I was really leaving. "What is all this?" my mother asked, gesturing to the boxes. "You're really moving?" I nodded, standing my ground in the center of my nearly empty living room. "I've accepted a position in Seattle. I leave tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" My father's face paled. "Emma, this is extreme. Running away won't solve anything." Olivia stepped forward, one hand protectively on her stomach. "We came to make peace, Emma. To work through this as a family." Her voice had that familiar softness, the one she used when trying to get her way. "The baby deserves to know its aunt." "The baby," I repeated slowly. "You mean the 5-month-old baby you've been hiding? Not the 8-week pregnancy you announced at my party?" Olivia's eyes widened. My parents exchanged confused glances. "What are you talking about?" my mother asked. "Ask Olivia," I said, never breaking eye contact with my sister. "Ask her how long she's really been pregnant. Ask her how long she and Jordan were seeing each other behind my back. Even before we broke up." The color drained from Olivia's face. "That's not. Who told you that? Does it matter? Is it true?" My father turned to Olivia. "What is she talking about? You said you and Jordan only got together a few months ago." Olivia's hand trembled slightly as she pushed her hair back. "Emma's just trying to make me look bad because she's jealous. Jordan chose me. The baby chose me." "The baby chose you?" I laughed, the sound hollow and unfamiliar even to my own ears. "That's not how biology works, Olivia. But betrayal, that was a choice. Lying to me for months while I cried on your shoulder about the breakup, that was a choice. You don't understand," Olivia said, her voice rising. "Jordan and I have something special. Something real. He was never happy with you. He told me that." My mother gasped. "Olivia!" "It's true," my sister continued, something breaking loose in her now. "Emma's always been so perfect, so put together. The good daughter. The successful one. For once, I have something she doesn't. Something she can't have. And there it was. The ugly truth laid bare. This wasn't about love. It was about taking something from me, about finally winning a competition I never knew we were in. My father stepped between us. This has gone far enough. We're here to fix this situation, not make it worse. I shook my head. There's nothing to fix. I'm leaving tomorrow. I wish you all the best with your new family arrangement. You can't just cut us off, my mother pleaded. We're your family. Family doesn't do what you've done, I said quietly. Family doesn't betray trust, or use pain as currency, or stand by while someone is deliberately hurt. Olivia rolled her eyes. So dramatic. It's not like Jordan was your husband. You dated for a few years. People break up all the time. This isn't about Jordan, I said, realizing as I spoke that it was true. This is about you, Olivia. And Mom and Dad. This is about a lifetime of double standards and excuses. I'm done being the responsible one who gets taken for granted. I'm done watching you take whatever you want without consequences. My mother began to cry, big dramatic tears that had always worked to redirect attention in the past. How can you be so cruel? Your sister is pregnant. Yes, she is. And she'll have you both to support her, just like always. But she won't have me. Not anymore. My father's expression hardened. You're making a mistake, Emma. One you'll regret when you calm down. No, I said with sudden clarity. The mistake was letting this pattern continue for so long. The mistake was believing I had to earn love that should have been freely given. I walked to the door and held it open. I have packing to finish. I think we've said everything that needs to be said. Olivia stormed out first, brushing past me without a word. My father followed, pausing briefly to say, "When you're ready to apologize, we'll be waiting." Only my mother lingered, her eyes pleading. Emma, please, don't throw away your family over this. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw for the first time how small she seemed, how dependent on the familiar dynamics that had shaped our family for decades. I'm not throwing away anything, I said gently. I'm choosing myself. Maybe for the first time. After they left, I finished packing in silence. That night, I slept on an air mattress in my empty bedroom, strangely at peace despite the confrontation. In the morning, the moving company arrived to take the last of my belongings. As I handed over my keys to the property manager, I felt lighter than I had in years. Seattle welcomed me with rain and new beginnings. My company had arranged temporary housing, a furnished apartment downtown with views of Elliott Bay. The first week was a blur of orientation meetings, new colleagues, finding my way around an unfamiliar city. I threw myself into work, volunteering for projects, staying late at the office. If anyone noticed my intensity, they attributed it to new job enthusiasm. 3 weeks after my move, my phone rang with my mother's number. I let it go to voicemail. She'd called every few days since I'd left, leaving increasingly concerned messages. This one was different. Emma, I know you don't want to talk to us right now, and I understand why, but I thought you should know that Jordan left Olivia yesterday. He said he wasn't ready to be a father after all. She's devastated. I'm not asking you to call her, but I thought you should know. I sat with this information, turning it over in my mind. Part of me felt a vindictive satisfaction, karma, finally catching up. But another part felt a strange, unwanted pity. Not enough to reach out, but enough to acknowledge that Olivia's pain was real, even if self-inflicted. I didn't call my sister. Instead, I texted Marcus. Heard the news. Is it true? He responded almost immediately. Yes, Jordan's claiming paternity doubts now. Convenient timing. I wasn't surprised. Jordan had always been skilled at escaping responsibility, at rewriting narratives to cast himself as the victim. I wondered if Olivia was experiencing what I had, that sickening realization that the person you trusted was capable of stunning selfishness. Life in Seattle developed its own rhythm. I found an apartment I loved in a neighborhood of coffee shops and bookstores. I made friends at work, started taking weekend hikes in the surrounding mountains. I dated casually but kept emotional connections light. Trust would take time to rebuild. Marcus and I stayed in touch, our friendship evolving through texts and occasional video calls. He'd moved to Portland for a job, close enough that we met for dinner when he visited Seattle on business. There was a gentle flirtation developing between us, but neither of us rushed it. We both carried complicated histories with relationships. 4 months after my move, another call came from my parents. This time, it was my father, his voice strained in the voicemail. "Emma, it's Dad. I know things have been difficult, but we need you to call us back. Your sister. There have been some complications with the pregnancy. She's in the hospital. The doctors are concerned. Please call us." My first instinct was skepticism. Another manipulation, another crisis designed to pull me back into the fold. But the tremor in my father's voice sounded genuine. I called the hospital directly, rather than returning his call, asking for Emma Reyes. She was indeed admitted in the high-risk pregnancy unit. I booked a flight for the following morning, not out of obligation or guilt, but out of a choice I was making freely. I could maintain my boundaries while still acknowledging the humanity in this situation. I didn't tell my parents I was coming. The hospital was a maze of identical corridors and antiseptic smells. I found Olivia's room easily enough, hesitating outside the half-open door. Through the gap, I could see her lying in bed, monitors beeping steadily around her. She looked small against the white sheets, her face drawn and pale. My mother dozed in a chair beside her. My father was nowhere to be seen. I knocked softly, my mother startled awake, her eyes widening as she registered my presence. "Emma," she breathed. "You came." Olivia's eyes fluttered open, confusion giving way to shock as she saw me standing in the doorway. "Can I come in?" I asked, directing the question at Olivia, not my mother. Olivia nodded, a small, uncertain movement. I entered the room but remained near the door, keeping physical distance that reflected the emotional reality between us. "The doctors say I have preeclampsia," Olivia said, her voice lacking its usual animation. "My blood pressure won't stabilize. They might have to deliver early." I nodded, taking in the information. "When is your due date?" 6 weeks from now, but they're saying it might be days, not weeks." Her hand rested on her stomach, no longer displayed as a trophy but cradled protectively. "Jordan hasn't even called to check on the baby." My mother made a small, distressed sound. "We don't need to talk about him right now." "No, we do," Olivia insisted, a flash of her old stubbornness returning. "Emma deserves to know the whole truth. Jordan left because the baby isn't his." I blinked, trying to process this new revelation. "What?" Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. "We were together while you were dating. That part was true. But after you broke up, I also saw someone else. A guy from work. I didn't tell Jordan because I knew. Gulchi. I knew he wouldn't stay if he thought the baby might not be his. And I was right." My mother looked away, her shoulders hunched with shame or disappointment or both. This was clearly not new information to her. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I'm tired of lying," Olivia said, wiping at her tears. "Because I'm scared and alone, and I've made such a mess of everything. Because you're the only person who's ever been honest with me, even when it hurt." I moved closer to the bed, not out of forgiveness, but out of recognition. Here was my sister, stripped of pretense, facing consequences that couldn't be charmed or cried away. "I'm sorry about the baby," I said. "I hope everything turns out okay." Olivia reached for my hand. I let her take it, our first physical contact in months. "I'm sorry for what I did to you," she whispered. "I was jealous. I've always been jealous. You made everything look so easy." "It wasn't easy," I said. "It was hard work. Work you could have done too." She nodded, more tears falling. "I know that now. We talked for an hour. Really talked, perhaps for the first time in our adult lives. She told me how she'd spent years resenting my accomplishments, while secretly believing she could never match them. How taking Jordan had felt like finally winning a game she'd been losing since childhood. How empty the victory had felt almost immediately. I told her about Seattle, about the freedom I'd found in walking away, about the person I was becoming without the weight of familial expectations. We didn't solve everything. Decades of dysfunction couldn't be undone in a hospital conversation, but something shifted between us, a crack in the old patterns, a glimpse of what might be possible. When a nurse came to check Olivia's vitals, I took the opportunity to step out. My mother followed me into the hallway. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I didn't think you would." "I almost didn't," I admitted. She nodded, looking older than I remembered. "Your father and we've been doing a lot of thinking since you left. A lot of talking. About how we raised you girls. About the patterns we created. And we got a lot wrong," she said simply. "We favored Olivia because she seemed to need us more. We took you for granted because you were strong. We never considered what that cost you." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever received from her. Not perfect, not complete, but sincere in its way. "It cost me a lot," I said. "It still does." "I know." She hesitated, then asked, "Will you stay? Just until we know the baby is okay?" I thought about my life in Seattle, about the boundaries I'd worked so hard to establish. "I'll stay until tomorrow. Then I need to get back." Relief softened her features. "That's fair, more than fair." That night, I checked into a hotel rather than staying at my parents' house. I needed the neutral space, the distance. In the morning, I returned to the hospital to find Olivia looking marginally better, her blood pressure somewhat stabilized. "They're keeping me for observation," she told me, "but the medication seems to be working for now." "Good," I said. "That's good news." She twisted the hospital bracelet on her wrist. "Emma, I've been thinking about what happens after. I can't stay with Mom and Dad forever. I need to figure out how to stand on my own, for the baby's sake if not mine." It was the first time I'd heard her acknowledge needing independence, needing to take responsibility. "That won't be easy," I said, not unkindly but honestly. "I know, but I've watched you do hard things. Maybe it's time I tried too." I left the hospital with mixed emotions, cautious hope, tangled with lingering hurt, a sense of closure alongside the knowledge that some damage couldn't be undone. I hugged Olivia goodbye, a brief, awkward embrace that acknowledged both our shared history and the distance between us now. "Take care of yourself," I told her, "and the baby." "I will," she promised. "And Emma? Thank you for coming. You didn't have to." "No," I agreed. "I didn't." That's the difference now. At the airport, waiting for my flight back to Seattle, I called Marcus. "How did it go?" he asked. "Complicated," I said. "But maybe a start." "A start of what?" I watched travelers rushing past, families reuniting, lovers embracing, individuals charting solitary paths. A start of something healthier, something based on choice rather than obligation. "And how do you feel about that?" I considered the question carefully. Cautious. Not ready to forgive completely, but ready to stop letting anger define me. Ready to build my life on my terms. He was quiet for a moment. "I'm proud of you, Emma. Not many people have the courage to reset the terms of their family relationships." "It's not courage," I said, realizing the truth as I spoke. "It's self-preservation." Back in Seattle, life resumed its forward motion. I threw myself into a major project at work, developed new friendships, explored my adopted city with growing familiarity. I spoke to my parents occasionally, brief, careful conversations that respected new boundaries. I texted with Olivia sparingly, mostly updates about her health and the pregnancy. 3 weeks after my visit, she delivered a baby girl, small but healthy, with a full head of dark hair. She named her Lily. "Not after anyone in the family," she explained, "but as a symbol of new beginnings." She sent a photo, and I felt an unexpected surge of tenderness for this tiny person who shared my blood but not my wounds. Jordan never returned to the picture. According to Marcus, he'd moved to Chicago, already dating someone new, already spinning stories about his, quote, crazy ex and her, quote, entrapment baby. Paternity tests eventually confirmed what Olivia had admitted. He wasn't the father. The other man, a coworker named David, stepped up in ways that surprised everyone, especially Olivia. He attended pediatrician appointments, learned to change diapers, spoke of co-parenting with respect, if not romance. 6 months after Lily's birth, I received a letter from Olivia, an actual handwritten letter, something so old-fashioned it made me smile despite myself. Inside was a photograph of Lily sitting up, chubby-cheeked and bright-eyed, alongside a check for $1,000. The letter read, "Emma, I know money doesn't fix betrayal. I know nothing really can. But this is the first installment of paying back what I've taken from you. Not just financially, but emotionally. I've started therapy. I'm working again, part-time while Mom watches Lily. David has been supportive, but we're taking things slow. I'm learning to stand on my own. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve it. But I want you to know that your strength, the same strength I resented for so long, has become my blueprint. I look at Lily, and I want to be for her what you tried to be for me. Someone who shows up, who keeps promises, who builds rather than takes. I miss you, but I respect the life you've built without us. Love, Olivia." I sat with the letter for a long time, emotions washing through me in waves. I didn't cash the check. Instead, I opened a savings account in Lily's name and deposited it there, the first of what would become regular contributions toward my niece's future. I called Olivia that evening. "I got your letter," I said when she answered. "Oh." Her voice was small, uncertain. "I meant what I wrote." "I know you did." I took a deep breath. "I'm coming home for Thanksgiving. Just for the weekend. I'd like to meet Lily, if that's okay." The silence on the other end stretched, broken finally by a soft sob. "Yes," Olivia said. "Yes, that would mean everything." "I'm not coming for you," I clarified, keeping my boundaries clear. "Or for Mom and Dad. I'm coming because Lily deserves to know her aunt. Because family should be a choice, not an obligation." "I understand," she said, and for once, I believed she did. As I hung up, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Not the peace of perfect resolution or fairy tale endings, but the steadier peace of authentic choices. I was reclaiming family on my terms, cautiously, intentionally, with eyes wide open to both possibilities and pitfalls. Marcus texted later that night. "Dinner next weekend? I'll be in Seattle for that conference." I smiled, typing back, "Yes. My place? I'll cook." Life wasn't perfect. The past couldn't be undone. Trust, once broken, could never be fully restored to its original shape. But forward was still a direction worth moving in, and I was finally walking that path with my head high, my heart guarded but not closed, and my future unfolding according to choices that were entirely my own. Thanksgiving arrived faster than I expected. Seattle had embraced fall completely. Leaves crunching underfoot, coffee shops filled with pumpkin-spiced everything, a perpetual mist hanging over the city in the mornings. I'd grown comfortable in my new life, established routines, and favorite places. The thought of returning home, even briefly, filled me with a strange mixture of anxiety and curiosity. Marcus drove me to the airport the morning of my flight. Our dinner had turned into regular dates over the past few weeks, a slow-building connection based on genuine understanding, rather than the immediate chemistry I'd mistaken for love with Jordan. "Call me if you need an escape plan," he said as we pulled up to departures. "I'm serious. Day or night." I squeezed his hand. "I'll be fine. It's just 3 days. 3 days with the family that drove you across the country to escape them," he reminded me gently. "That's not nothing, Emma." "I'm not the same person they pushed around before," I said, realizing how true it was. "I know who I am now. I know what I'll accept and what I won't," he smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "That's what I like most about you." The flight back east felt like traveling through time as much as space. Looking out the window at the clouds below, I thought about the woman who had fled 5 months ago. Hurt, angry, reactionary. I was returning with something I hadn't possessed then: perspective. My father was waiting at baggage claim, standing awkwardly among the crowd, checking his watch repeatedly. He'd aged in the months since I'd left, more gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes. When he spotted me, his face registered shock before settling into cautious happiness. "Emma," he said, moving forward but stopping short of embracing me. You changed your hair. I touched my bob, now grown out slightly, and returned to my natural brown. Among other things, the drive to their house was filled with his careful small talk, comments about the weather, updates on distant relatives, questions about Seattle that skimmed the surface of my new life. I answered politely, but didn't elaborate, saving my energy for what lay ahead. The family home looked exactly as I remembered. 2-story colonial with navy shutters, maple tree in the front yard now bare of leaves, holiday wreath already hanging on the front door, though Thanksgiving was still 2 days away. My mother had always been eager for Christmas. She was waiting in the doorway as we pulled into the driveway, wiping her hands on an apron, trying too hard to appear casual. "Emma," she called, her voice artificially bright. "You're just in time for lunch." Inside, the house smelled of cinnamon and roasting turkey. My mother always did a practice run the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. The familiar scent hit me with unexpected nostalgia. Memories of childhood holidays before the complicated dynamics of our family had fully solidified. "Where's Olivia?" I asked, setting my suitcase by the stairs. "Putting Lily down for a nap," my mother replied. "She's staying here for the holiday weekend, too. David is coming for dinner tomorrow." I nodded, noting the careful way my mother watched my reaction, the nervous energy in her movements. She was trying. They both were, but the old patterns lingered just beneath the surface, waiting for the slightest opportunity to reassert themselves. Lunch was a stilted affair, my parents taking turns filling silences with questions about Seattle, my job, my apartment. I answered honestly but briefly, offering just enough information to satisfy basic curiosity without inviting deeper engagement. "You seem different," my mother finally said, studying me across the table. "I am different," I replied simply. My father cleared his throat. "In a good way, I hope." "In my way," I said. "That's what matters." After lunch, I went upstairs to unpack in my old bedroom, now converted into a generic guest room with beige walls and hotel-like furnishings. All traces of my childhood had been boxed up or discarded, a physical manifestation of how thoroughly I'd extracted myself from this house. I was folding a sweater when a soft knock came at the door. Olivia stood there, a baby monitor clutched in one hand. She looked both familiar and strange. The same delicate features, but with new shadows under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail rather than the styled waves she'd always favored. "Hi," she said, her voice smaller than I remembered. "Can I come in?" I nodded, continuing to unpack as she perched on the edge of the bed. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our history filling the space between us. "Lily should wake up soon," she finally said. "She usually naps about an hour after lunch." "I'm looking forward to meeting her." Olivia twisted the baby monitor in her hands. "Emma, I know my letter said a lot of this already, but I need to say it to your face. I'm sorry. For everything with Jordan, for the announcement at your party, for the years of taking without giving back. I was selfish and jealous and broken in ways I'm just starting to understand." I set down the shirt I was folding and turned to face her fully. "Why Jordan, Olivia? Of all the men in the world, why him?" She looked down, shame coloring her cheeks. "Because he was yours. Because you loved him. Because taking him felt like finally winning something you valued." She shook her head. "It sounds so pathetic when I say it out loud." "It is pathetic," I agreed, not cruelly, but honestly. "And it hurt me more than you can imagine." "I know." She met my eyes directly for the first time. "I think I wanted to hurt you. I think I believed that if I could make you feel as inadequate as I always felt next to you, it would somehow fix me." Tears welled in her eyes. "But it didn't fix anything. It just broke more things." The baby monitor crackled with soft fussing sounds. Olivia glanced down at it, then back at me. "That's Lily. Would you like to come meet her?" I nodded, following her down the hall to what had once been her childhood bedroom, now transformed into a nursery with pale yellow walls and woodland creatures painted in a border near the ceiling. A white crib stood in the center, and inside, a small figure squirmed beneath a light blanket. Olivia reached in, lifting the baby with practiced ease. "Lily," she cooed. "There's someone special here to meet you." She turned, and I saw my niece clearly for the first time. Dark curls, round cheeks flushed with sleep, eyes the exact shade of blue-green that ran in our family. Something twisted in my chest, a complex emotion I couldn't immediately name. "Would you like to hold her?" Olivia asked. I hesitated, then nodded, accepting the warm weight of the baby into my arms. Lily blinked up at me, her tiny brow furrowing in concentration as she studied this new face. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled, a gummy, open-mouthed expression of pure innocence. "She likes you?" Olivia whispered. "She doesn't know me," I replied, but I smiled back at the baby nonetheless. "But she will," Olivia said, the statement somewhere between a question and a hope. I looked down at Lily, this blameless new person who carried our complicated DNA but none of our baggage. "Yes," I decided. "She will." That evening, we ate dinner as a family. My parents, Olivia, Lily in a high chair, and me. The conversation remained careful, everyone conscious of avoiding triggers, of maintaining the fragile peace. My mother had clearly briefed my father extensively on acceptable topics, and he stuck to them with awkward determination. After dinner, I offered to do the dishes, needing a moment alone. As I stood at the sink, hands immersed in soapy water, I heard my father enter the kitchen behind me. "Need help?" he asked, picking up a dish towel. I handed him a wet plate. "Sure." We worked in silence for a few minutes, falling into a rhythm, wash, rinse, dry, stack, that reminded me of childhood evenings when I'd been his designated helper. "I've been seeing a therapist," he said abruptly, setting down a glass with exaggerated care. "Your mother, too," separately and together. I glanced at him, surprised. "That's good." He nodded, focusing intently on drying a fork. "It was her idea, after you left. She said we needed to understand why one daughter ran away, and the other one couldn't stand on her own 2 feet. Those were her exact words." "And? What did you learn?" He sighed, the sound heavy with regret. "That we failed you both, in different ways. We protected Olivia from consequences until she never learned to face them. We pushed you to be so self-sufficient that you couldn't ask for help when you needed it." I handed him another plate, considering his words. "It wasn't all bad," I said finally. "I like who I've become. I just wish the path hadn't been so painful." "I'm sorry for my part in that pain," he said, the words clearly difficult for him. "I was raised to believe that children need to be treated the same to be treated fairly. I never considered that equal isn't always the same as equitable." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was honest, more honest than I'd expected. "Thank you for telling me." That night, lying in the familiarity of the guest room, I texted Marcus, surviving. "No escape plan needed yet." He responded immediately. "Proud of you. Remember your boundaries." I fell asleep thinking about boundaries, those I'd established since leaving, those I'd need to maintain during this visit, those I might be able to adjust as my family showed signs of real change. Thanksgiving Day dawned bright and cold, sunlight streaming through the guest room window. Downstairs, I could hear my mother already busy in the kitchen, pots clanging, oven door opening and closing. Some traditions never changed. I dressed carefully in a burgundy sweater dress I'd bought in Seattle, applied light makeup, and styled my hair. Armor of a sort for the day ahead. In the kitchen, my mother looked up from basting the turkey. "You look lovely," she said, genuine appreciation in her voice. "That color suits you." "Thanks," I replied, reaching for a mug. "Coffee?" "Just made a fresh pot." We moved around each other with careful politeness, me setting the dining room table while she coordinated the timing of various dishes. When Olivia came downstairs with Lily, the baby dressed in a ridiculous turkey-themed outfit, complete with a tule tutu, the kitchen filled with the easy chatter of motherhood, feeding schedules, sleep regressions, first foods. I listened without contributing, struck by how naturally Olivia had taken to motherhood despite her earlier flightiness. She spoke of Lily with a focus and dedication I'd never seen her apply to anything before. "She's my reset button," Olivia explained when she caught me watching them. "My chance to break the cycle." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. David had arrived, bearing a bakery pie and a nervous smile. He was nothing like Jordan. Shorter, more solidly built, with kind eyes and a quiet demeanor. He greeted me with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions about Seattle and my work without the competitive edge Jordan had always carried. As we gathered around the table, my father at the head with carving knife poised over the turkey, I studied these people who shared my blood but had become almost strangers. My mother, fussing over the placement of serving dishes. My father, performing his annual ritual of meat distribution. Olivia, cutting tiny pieces of sweet potato for Lily. David, watching them both with tentative affection. My father raised his glass. "Before we eat, I'd like to say something." He looked around the table, his gaze lingering on me. "This year has brought changes none of us expected. Some painful, some necessary. I'm grateful we're all here today, finding our way towards something better." It wasn't a grand speech, but coming from my father, a man who typically limited his Thanksgiving remarks to dig in before it gets cold, it felt significant. We clinked glasses, the sound bright and clear in the dining room. Dinner progressed smoothly, the conversation moving from safe topics, local news, holiday plans, to slightly more personal ones. David's recent promotion, my mother's decision to retire early. When Lily began fussing, Olivia excused herself to walk the baby around, leaving an opening in the conversation. My mother filled it unexpectedly. "Emma, there's something we've been meaning to tell you." She glanced at my father, who nodded encouragingly. "We've decided to sell the house." I set down my fork, surprised. "Really? Why?" "It's too big for just us," my father explained. "And too full of old patterns. We're looking at condos downtown, near the Riverwalk. Plus," my mother added, "we want to set aside some money for both you girls. A trust for Lily, and something to help Olivia get established in her own place." I nodded, processing this information. "That sounds sensible." "We'd like to do the same for you," my father continued. "I know you're doing well on your own, but everyone can use a safety net. In the past, I might have refused on principle, seeing it as another example of them treating us as equally needy when we weren't. Now I recognized it for what it was, an attempt at genuine equity, at acknowledging both our different circumstances and our equal value to them." "Thank you," I said simply. "That's very thoughtful." When Olivia returned with a calmer Lily, the conversation shifted again, but I remained struck by the symbolism of my parents selling the house, this physical repository of our family history, with all its complicated dynamics. There was something powerfully intentional about the decision, a concrete acknowledgement that change required more than just words. After dinner, while my mother and Olivia cleaned up, I took Lily to the living room, bouncing her gently on my knee. David sat nearby, watching with a smile. "She looks like you," he observed, "something about the eyes." I studied Lily's face, recognizing the family resemblance he'd noted. "Poor kid," I joked. "Nah, she's lucky," he replied. "From what Olivia's told me, she could use some of your determination." I raised an eyebrow. "Olivia said that? About me?" He nodded. "All the time. She talks about you like you're some kind of superhero. The way you built your career, bought your place, stood up for yourself when everyone was against you." He shrugged. "She's trying to learn from you, in her way. The idea that Olivia looked up to me, that she viewed my life as aspirational rather than a standard she'd failed to meet, was startling. I'd always assumed her resentment stemmed from our parents' expectation that she be more like me. I'd never considered she might actually want to be. When my mother called everyone for dessert, I handed Lily back to David and pulled out my phone, stepping onto the front porch for privacy. I dialed Marcus, needing to hear his voice, to connect with the life I'd built away from here. "How's it going?" he asked when he answered. "Surprisingly okay," I admitted. "They're actually trying. All of them. And how do you feel about that? I considered the question, watching my breath form clouds in the cold air. Cautious. Hopeful, maybe, but not naive. That sounds healthy, he said. Balanced. I think I might be ready to forgive them, I said slowly, testing the words. Not forget. Not erase what happened, but move forward without dragging all that weight with me. Forgiveness isn't about them, Marcus reminded me gently. It's about freeing yourself. After we hung up, I stayed on the porch a moment longer, looking up at the stars visible in the clear night sky. Forgiveness, not the easy kind that pretends harm never happened, but the complicated kind that acknowledges pain while choosing to set down the burden of anger. Not for them, for me. Inside, the family had moved to the living room, pie plates balanced on knees, coffee steaming in mugs. My mother was showing David old photo albums, Olivia cringing good-naturedly at childhood pictures. My father sat slightly apart, watching them with a soft expression I couldn't recall seeing before. I joined them, accepting the slice of pumpkin pie my mother offered. As she turned the page of the album, a particular photo caught my eye. Olivia and me at the beach, maybe 8 and 10 years old, arms around each other's shoulders, gap-toothed grins facing the camera. Before competition had soured our bond, before we'd been cast in our respective roles of golden child and responsible one. I remember that day, I said, surprising myself. Dad buried us in the sand up to our necks, and Mom freaked out because she thought we'd get sunburned. Olivia laughed. And then that seagull stole our sandwich right out of your hand. You cried, I recalled. Because it was my sandwich, she protested, laughing harder. Soon we were all sharing memories, the good ones that had been overshadowed by later conflicts but not erased. Stories of family vacations, holiday disasters, school achievements. Not everything had been broken. Not always. When it was time for bed, Olivia lingered in the hallway outside my room. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For coming back. For giving us a chance to start fixing things. For meeting Lily. She hesitated. For not hating me, even though you'd have every right to. I considered her words carefully. I don't hate you, Olivia. I was angry. Furious, actually. And hurt in ways I'm still processing. But hate takes too much energy to maintain. I leaned against the doorframe. I'm still learning how to be your sister without being your safety net or your competitor. It's going to take time. She nodded, eyes bright with unshed tears. I'd like to come visit you in Seattle sometime. When you're ready. I want Lily to know her aunt, to see the world outside this town. I'd like that, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Maybe in the spring, when the cherry blossoms are out. The next morning, I packed my suitcase for the return flight, folding clothes with methodical precision. My mother appeared in the doorway with a small wrapped package. A little something for your new place, she explained. Nothing fancy. I opened it to find a framed photograph. Not a family portrait or childhood image as I'd expected, but a recent picture of Lily, laughing in her high chair, hands raised in joy. Olivia took it last week, my mother said. I thought you might like a reminder of your niece, even when you're far away. I traced the frame with my finger, touched by the simple thoughtfulness of the gift. Thank you. I'll put it on my bookshelf. My father drove me to the airport, the car ride less awkward than our initial one had been. As we pulled up to departures, he put the car in park but left the engine running. Emma, he said, turning to face me. I want you to know something. Your mother and I are proud of you. Not just for your accomplishments, though those are impressive, but for your courage in breaking patterns that weren't serving you, even when it meant standing up to us. He cleared his throat. I wish we'd seen sooner how much we were asking of you, how unfair our expectations were. I nodded, accepting his words for what they were. Not a perfect apology, but a genuine acknowledgement. Thank you for saying that. Will you come back for Christmas? He asked as I reached for the door handle. I considered the question honestly. Not this year, I think. This visit was a good start, but I need time to process. Maybe next year. He nodded. disappointment visible but acceptance stronger. "We'll be here when you're ready." As my plane lifted off, I watched the familiar landscape of my hometown recede, giving way to clouds, and then the vast expanse of the country below. 3 days ago, I'd flown east carrying anger and trepidation. Now I was returning west with something different. Not closure, exactly, but perspective. The understanding that forgiveness didn't require forgetting, that boundaries could be firm without being walls, that family could be redefined rather than rejected. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Safe travels. Lily already misses her Aunt Emma." Attached was a picture of the baby clutching the small stuffed orca I'd brought her from Seattle. I smiled, typing back, "Tell her Aunt Emma we'll see her soon. Take care of yourself, Liv." Marcus was waiting when I landed, leaning against his car in the short-term parking lot, a paper cup of my favorite coffee in his hand. "Welcome back," he said, pulling me into a hug. "How are you feeling?" I took the coffee, breathing in the familiar scent, letting Seattle's cool air fill my lungs. Like I've been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there until I set part of it down. He nodded, opening the passenger door for me. "And the rest?" "The rest I'll keep carrying until I'm ready to set it down too," I said. But it feels lighter now. Manageable. As we drove through the city, my city now, by choice rather than birth, I watched the familiar landmarks pass. The Space Needle illuminated against the evening sky, the waterfront with its ferries crossing the Sound, the neighborhoods I was gradually learning to navigate without GPS. "You know," Marcus said as we approached my apartment building, "you're the bravest person I know." I laughed softly. "For surviving a family Thanksgiving? For rewriting your story," he corrected. "For refusing to accept roles that were chosen for you. For having the courage to leave, and the even greater courage to return on your own terms." I reached for his hand across the console, interlacing our fingers. "I'm still figuring it out, the balance between holding people accountable and offering grace. Between protecting myself and remaining open to change." "That's the work of a lifetime," he said simply. Inside my apartment, everything was exactly as I'd left it. Plants thriving on the windowsill, books lined neatly on shelves, the space arranged according to my preferences alone. I unpacked, placing the framed photo of Lily on my bookshelf, where I'd see it daily, a reminder of both what I'd left behind and what might lie ahead. Later, as Marcus and I shared takeout on my couch, I found myself describing moments from the weekend. Lily's smile, my father's unexpected vulnerability, Olivia's tentative steps toward independence, my mother's efforts to make amends. "So what happens now?" he asked when I'd finished. I considered the question, gazing out my window at the Seattle skyline glittering in the distance. "Now I keep building my life here, day by day. I stay in touch with them, but with boundaries intact. I get to know my niece. I give them the chance to show, not just tell, that things are changing. And if they don't change, then I'll have lost nothing by trying," I said with newfound certainty. "Because I'm not staking my happiness on their transformation anymore. That's the difference." He smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear in a gesture that was becoming familiar, cherished. "And that, Emma Reyes, is what makes you extraordinary." As I leaned into his touch, I felt a sense of rightness settle over me. Not the manufactured piece of denial or suppression, but the authentic calm that comes from standing firmly in your truth while remaining open to evolution. My story wasn't finished, but for perhaps the first time, I was holding the pen myself, writing each chapter with intention rather than reaction. The journey forward wouldn't be linear or perfect. There would be setbacks, old patterns reasserting themselves, moments of doubt on all sides. But I had found my voice, my boundaries, my worth. And having found them once, I knew I could find them again whenever necessary. A compass, guiding me home to myself no matter how complicated the path. Spring arrived in Seattle with an explosion of cherry blossoms and fresh possibilities. In the 6 months since Thanksgiving, life had settled into rhythms both comfortable and challenging. My promotion to creative director had come through in February, bringing new responsibilities that stretched my capabilities in exciting ways. My relationship with Marcus had deepened. evolving from cautious dating to a partnership grounded in mutual respect and understanding. We still maintained separate apartments, both of us wary of rushing into cohabitation after our respective experiences with relationships built on shaky foundations. My weekly video calls with Lily had become a fixture in my calendar. Sunday mornings spent making silly faces at my niece as she grew from an infant into a babbling, curious, almost toddler. Olivia would prop her up in front of the screen, narrating Lily's latest developments: first tooth, first attempts at crawling, first solid foods. These calls remained primarily about Lily, with Olivia and I navigating a new kind of sisterhood built on careful honesty, rather than the complicated dynamics of our past. My parents had sold the family home in January, downsizing to a modern 2-bedroom condo overlooking the river. Less space, less to maintain, more time to live, my father had explained during one of our monthly phone conversations. These calls, once awkward and filled with landmines, had gradually evolved into more genuine exchanges. We didn't dive deep into emotional territory, but the surface-level updates were delivered with an authenticity that felt like progress. As promised, Olivia had scheduled a visit for April, when Seattle's famous cherry trees would be in full bloom. The prospect of hosting my sister and niece for a week stirred a mixture of emotions: excitement to show Lily my world, apprehension about prolonged close contact with Olivia, hope that this visit might further solidify our tentative new relationship. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Marcus asked as we walked through the farmer's market the weekend before their arrival. "A week is a long time." I selected a bunch of tulips from a vendor's display, considering his question. "I think so. We've been doing the video calls for months without incident. And the boundaries seem to be holding. She hasn't asked for money, hasn't tried to make me responsible for her emotions, hasn't compared our lives in that old competitive way. People often revert to established patterns when they're back in physical proximity," he pointed out, ever the pragmatist. "Especially family." "I know," I admitted, paying for the flowers. "But that's the test, isn't it? Whether the changes are real or just performance for distance." He squeezed my hand. "Just remember, you can call a timeout if you need it. My place is available as a sanctuary anytime." I leaned into him, grateful for his steady support. "I've booked them an Airbnb 3 blocks from my apartment. Close enough for convenience, far enough for breathing room." The day of their arrival, I left work early to prepare. I'd stocked my refrigerator with child-friendly snacks, borrowed a portable crib from a coworker, and arranged a small basket of Seattle-themed gifts. A tiny Space Needle plush for Lily, local coffee for Olivia, a guidebook marked with my favorite spots around the city. As I straightened throw pillows and rearranged books for the 3rd time, I caught myself in a familiar pattern: the perfectionism that had always been my response to anxiety, particularly family-related anxiety. I took a deep breath, set down the book I'd been repositioning, and spoke aloud to my empty apartment. This isn't about proving anything. This is about connection on new terms. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Landed. Getting our bags now. See you soon." I texted back a simple "can't wait" with a heart emoji, then grabbed my keys and headed out. The drive to the airport was punctuated by a spring shower that cleared just as I pulled into the arrivals area, leaving everything fresh and glistening. I spotted them immediately. Olivia looking travel-worn but smiling, Lily perched on her hip in bright green overalls, a small backpack shaped like a bumblebee on Olivia's other shoulder. I waved, and to my surprise, Lily waved back, a deliberate motion that made my heart catch. "She recognizes you from the video calls," Olivia explained as I approached. "I show her your picture every day and say Aunt Emma." "Hi, Lily," I said softly, coming close but not reaching for her, respecting her space. "I'm so happy to see you in person." The baby studied me with solemn eyes, then broke into a wide, 2-toothed smile, and reached one pudgy hand toward my face. I leaned in, letting her pat my cheek with curious fingers. "I think that's approval," Olivia laughed. "She's been a champ on the flight, but I'm pretty sure we both smell like airplane and could use a change of scenery." I helped them load their luggage into my car, noticing how efficiently Olivia had packed. One suitcase for the week, a diaper bag, and a small carry-on. The Olivia I'd grown up with would have brought multiple bags for a weekend trip, constantly forgetting essentials despite overpacking. "I've gotten better at streamlining," she said, catching my glance. "Turns out having a baby forces you to prioritize what really matters." The drive to their Airbnb was filled with Olivia's commentary on the flight, Lily's occasional babbling, and my brief descriptions of neighborhoods as we passed through them. It felt surprisingly easy, this surface-level conversation between adults with a shared history but no immediate tensions. After helping them settle into the rental, a cozy one-bedroom with a kitchen and small balcony, I suggested they rest before coming to my place for dinner. "Lily could use a proper nap after being squished on my lap for hours," Olivia agreed. "Is 7 too late?" "7 is perfect. Text me when you're on your way and I'll come meet you. It's an easy walk, but you might not want to navigate a new city at dusk with a baby." Back at my apartment, I prepared a simple but thoughtful dinner: roasted chicken, spring vegetables from the farmer's market, fresh bread from my favorite local bakery. Nothing elaborate, but a step up from the takeout and frozen meals that had characterized my early days in Seattle. When my doorbell rang at 7:15, I opened it to find Olivia looking refreshed in clean clothes, Lily now dressed in polka dot pajamas, clutching a well-loved stuffed rabbit. "Sorry we're a little late," Olivia said as they entered. "Someone decided her hair needed an impromptu pasta sauce styling right before we left." She rolled her eyes good-naturedly at Lily, who grinned as if pleased with her creativity. "No problem at all," I replied, leading them into my living room. "Dinner's ready whenever you are." Olivia set Lily down on my rug, where the baby immediately began crawling toward my bookshelf with impressive speed. "She's mobile now, in case you couldn't tell. Nothing is safe." I laughed, crouching down to Lily's level. "I have baby-proofed the obvious dangers, but feel free to redirect her if she's heading for trouble." Dinner passed with comfortable conversation, Lily alternating between eating pieces of chicken and vegetables I'd cut into tiny cubes, and playing with a silicone spoon Olivia produced from what seemed like a bottomless diaper bag of preparedness. "So," Olivia said as we finished eating, "how's the new job title treating you?" "Creative director sounds impressive." "It's challenging in the best ways," I replied, surprised by her genuine interest. "I'm managing a team now which has a learning curve, but I love the strategic aspects of the role." "I always knew you'd be successful," she said, then quickly added, "That's not meant as a comparison or anything. Just, you were always so focused and determined. It's good to see that rewarded." I studied her face, searching for the old competitive edge or hidden barb, but found only sincerity. "Thank you. How about you? The last time we talked, you mentioned looking into online classes." Olivia brightened, reaching out to wipe a smear of food from Lily's cheek with practiced efficiency. "Yes. I've started an associate's degree in early childhood education. It's only 2 classes at a time, but it feels good to be working towards something concrete." "That's fantastic," I said, meaning it. "What inspired that direction?" "Lily, obviously," she replied, smiling at her daughter. "But also the work I've been doing with my therapist. Recognizing that I've always enjoyed being around children, that I'm good with them. But I spent years bouncing between jobs that had nothing to do with my actual interests, because I was so busy running from responsibility." The casual mention of therapy, something the old Olivia would have scorned as unnecessary or embarrassing, struck me as perhaps the clearest evidence of real change. After dinner, we moved to the living room, where I'd set up a small play area with toys I'd purchased for Lily's visit. The baby crawled directly to a wooden-shaped sorter, examining it with intense concentration. "She's very focused," I observed, watching her methodically try to fit a square block into various openings. "Like her aunt," Olivia said softly. "She reminds me of you sometimes, the way she studies things, how determined she gets. I hope she keeps that quality." I glanced at my sister, caught off guard by the comment. "You never seemed to think my focus was a positive trait when we were growing up." Olivia sighed, leaning back against the couch. "I was jealous, Emma, of everything about you. Your discipline, your achievements, the way you seemed to know exactly what you wanted while I felt lost all the time." She watched Lily successfully drop a circle through the correct hole, clapping in triumph. I thought if I could tear you down, or take what was yours, somehow I'd feel better about my own chaos. It never worked, but I kept trying anyway. Her frankness disarmed me. This wasn't the defensive, deflecting sister I'd grown up with, but a woman capable of uncomfortable self-reflection. What changed? I asked. She considered the question. Hitting rock bottom, partly. Jordan leaving, being alone with a newborn, moving back in with mom and dad. It forced me to face myself without excuses. But also, seeing you walk away from all of us. That was clarifying. She looked at me directly. You chose your well-being over our dysfunction. I'd never seen anyone in our family do that before. I wasn't sure how to respond to such raw honesty. I didn't leave to teach anyone a lesson. I left because I had to save myself. I know, she nodded. That's what made it so powerful. You weren't doing it for effect or attention. You were just choosing yourself, maybe for the first time. She smiled ruefully. It made me realize I didn't know how to choose myself in healthy ways. I only knew how to act out or take from others. Lily crawled over to me, pulling herself up on my knees, babbling urgently as if joining the conversation. I smiled down at her, offering a finger for her to grasp. And now? I asked Olivia, genuinely curious about her perspective. Now I'm learning, she said simply. Learning to build something for myself and Lily, instead of resenting what others have. Learning that genuine accomplishment feels better than shortcuts ever did. She shrugged. I'm not there yet, not by a long shot, but at least I'm facing the right direction. The rest of the evening passed in lighter conversation, plans for their visit, updates on mutual acquaintances, Lily's latest developmental milestones. When they left around 9, Lily drowsy against Olivia's shoulder, I felt a curious mixture of exhaustion and peace, as if I'd completed an emotional marathon but finished stronger than I'd started. The week unfolded with a gentle rhythm, mornings exploring Seattle's family-friendly attractions, afternoons accommodating Lily's nap schedule, evenings spent in increasingly comfortable conversation. We walked beneath canopies of cherry blossoms in the University District, Lily's eyes wide with wonder at the swirling pink petals. We visited the Children's Museum, where Olivia laughed without self-consciousness as she crawled through exhibits alongside her daughter. We took a ferry to Bainbridge Island, the three of us standing at the rail watching Seattle's skyline recede, Lily bundled against the spring breeze. Marcus joined us for dinner midweek, his easy manner with Lily and respectful engagement with Olivia further evidence of why he'd become such an important part of my life. Watching him build a tower of blocks for my niece to knock down, patience undiminished after the 12th repetition, I felt a surge of affection so strong it nearly overwhelmed me. He's wonderful with her, Olivia commented as we prepared dessert in the kitchen, Marcus's laughter floating in from the living room. And the way he looks at you, it's the real thing, isn't it? I nodded, allowing myself a small smile. I think so. We're taking it slowly, both a little gun-shy after previous relationships, but, yes, it feels like the real thing. I'm happy for you, she said, and the most surprising part was that I believed her. The statement held none of the veiled envy or competitive edge that would have colored such a comment in the past. You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are. On their last evening in Seattle, I suggested we have dinner at my apartment again rather than going out. Lily had been fussy all day, overtired from a week of new experiences, and a quiet night in seemed the kindest option for everyone. As I chopped vegetables for a stir-fry, Olivia sat at my kitchen counter, Lily finally napping in the portable crib in my bedroom. Thank you for this week, she said, tracing patterns on the countertop with her finger. For welcoming us, for showing us your city, for giving us another chance. I continued chopping, considering my response carefully. I didn't do it just for you, I finally said. I did it for me too. And for Lily. Because holding on to anger was exhausting, and because she deserves to know her family, the good parts of it at least. Olivia nodded, accepting this more complex truth without defensiveness. Still, thank you. She hesitated, then added, There's something I've been meaning to tell you. I've found my own apartment back home. It's small, just a one-bedroom, but it's in a good neighborhood near the community college. I move in next month. I looked up from my cutting board, genuinely pleased. Olivia, that's great news. Your own place is a big step. Mom and Dad offered to help with the deposit, she continued, but I saved for it myself. Took longer, but it feels important somehow to do it on my own. The significance of this wasn't lost on me. For Olivia, declining our parents' financial help represented a fundamental shift in her approach to independence and accountability. I'm proud of you, I said, meaning it completely. She blinked rapidly, looking down. That means a lot coming from you. We were quiet for a moment, the only sound the rhythmic chopping of my knife against the cutting board. I've been thinking about what you said that day, at your birthday party, Olivia finally said, about my response silencing everyone. I paused my chopping, remembering. After my parents and Olivia had appeared at my nearly empty condo the day before my move, after the confrontation about the truth of her pregnancy timeline, I had delivered a statement that stopped them all cold. I'm not leaving because I'm running away. I'm leaving because I finally realized I deserve better than being the solution to everyone else's problems. And that silence you hear? That's the sound of me putting myself first. What about it? I asked. It changed everything, she said simply. Not just for you, but for all of us. Mom and Dad started therapy the next week. I enrolled in parenting classes before Lily was even born. It was like, you finally said out loud what we'd all been avoiding, and once it was said, we couldn't keep pretending. I considered this perspective that my boundary setting had created a ripple effect beyond my own liberation. It hadn't been my intention or responsibility to transform my family, but perhaps in saving myself, I'd inadvertently opened a door for them as well. I'm glad something positive came from such a painful moment, I said, resuming my chopping. But I want to be clear about something, Olivia. I didn't leave to teach anyone a lesson. I left because it was the only way I could breathe. I know, she nodded. That's what made it so powerful. You weren't trying to manipulate or punish. You were just finally being honest about what you needed. After dinner, as Olivia packed Lily's things for their morning flight, I found myself standing on my balcony, looking out at the Seattle skyline illuminated against the night sky. Marcus had texted earlier, checking in. How's the last night going? Need backup? I smiled, typing back. All good. Actually enjoying the time. Talk tomorrow? He responded immediately. Proud of you. Sweet dreams. Those two simple words, proud of you, echoed in my mind, connecting to Olivia's earlier revelation. A year ago, I'd been a woman defined largely by what I gave to others, my worth measured in usefulness, my boundaries constantly breached in the name of family obligation. Now I stood in a city of my choosing, building a life on my terms, gradually reconnecting with my family from a position of strength rather than subjugation. The balcony door slid open behind me, and Olivia stepped out, wrapping her cardigan tighter against the evening chill. Lily's finally down for the night, she said, joining me at the railing. She fought it hard, but exhaustion won in the end. I smiled, remembering the determined look on my niece's face as she'd resisted sleep despite heavy eyelids. She's stubborn. Another family trait, Olivia laughed softly. Though I think she comes by it honestly from both sides. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the distant ferry crossing the Sound, its lights bright against the dark water. Do you think you'll ever come back? Olivia asked, her voice careful, neutral. Not to live, necessarily, but more than just occasional visits? I considered the question, appreciating that she'd phrased it without pressure or expectation. I don't know, I answered honestly. Seattle feels like home now in ways our hometown never quite did, but I'm open to the possibility of more connection, especially as Lily grows up. I glanced at her. What about you? Do you think you'll stay there forever? She shrugged. For now, it makes sense. My support system is there. My classes, affordable childcare. But I've been thinking about what it means to start fresh, to build something intentional rather than just accepting what's familiar. She smiled ruefully. You're not the only one capable of reinvention, you know. I'm starting to see that, I acknowledged. When they left the next morning, the goodbye felt different from any we'd shared before. Not the perfunctory hugs of childhood departures or the tension-filled silence of recent years, but something authentic and open-ended. I held Lily close, breathing in her sweet baby scent, promising to continue our Sunday video calls. Olivia embraced me last, holding on an extra moment. "Thank you for showing me another way to live," she whispered. "Not just this week, but always, even when I was too stubborn or jealous to appreciate it." I hugged her back, finding forgiveness easier in this moment of genuine connection than I'd ever imagined possible. "Take care of yourself, Liv. And that amazing little girl." "I will," she promised. "We'll talk soon." As their taxi pulled away, I stood on the sidewalk watching until it turned the corner, a sense of completion settling over me. Not an ending, but the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another, one written on my terms, with boundaries intact and connections strengthened rather than severed. I walked back to my apartment through streets lined with cherry trees, petals drifting down like gentle snow in the spring breeze. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Breakfast? I know a place with great waffles that might cheer up a post-family visit mood." I smiled, typing back, "Actually feeling pretty good. But I never turn down waffles. Meet you in 30. As I gathered my keys and jacket, I caught sight of my reflection in the entry mirror, a woman I recognized but had only recently come to fully appreciate. Not perfect, not finished evolving, but clear-eyed and centered in a way that had once seemed impossible. The journey from that birthday party revelation to this moment hadn't been linear or easy. There had been anger, grief, doubt, and difficult conversations. There had been boundaries tested and redrawn, apologies offered and accepted, new patterns established through consistent effort on all sides. But standing here now, I knew with certainty that the hardest step had been that first one, choosing myself even when everyone around me considered it selfish or extreme. My sister had announced her pregnancy with my ex at my birthday, expecting me to fold as I always had before, to prioritize family peace over personal dignity. My response had indeed silenced everyone, not because it was loud or dramatic, but because it was true, a truth we had all been avoiding for decades. In the years since, that silence had given way to new conversations, more honest and equal than any we'd had before. We were learning, all of us, how to be family without the toxic patterns that had defined us. Not perfectly, not completely, but genuinely. As I closed my apartment door behind me, stepping out into the Seattle morning, I felt the lightness that comes with authentic living, the freedom of boundaries respected, of connections chosen rather than obligated, of a future unfolding according to my own definition of happiness. The path forward would have its challenges. Family healing is never finished, only practiced. But I walked toward my future with clear eyes and an open heart, no longer defined by what I'd left behind, but by what I was choosing to build. A life that honored both my independence and my capacity for connection, both my past and my potential. And in that balance, I had found not just escape, but genuine freedom. Not just distance, but perspective. Not just survival, but the possibility of thriving. On my terms, in my time, in my way. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.